And Trump hosted the country's top military commanders and their partners last night at the White House for dinner. The gathering came amid concerns about tensions with North Korea and the Iran nuclear deal. During a photo op in the White House dining room, President Trump made this puzzling comment.
You guys know what this represents?
Well,
maybe it's the calm before the storm.
what's the storming?
Could be the calm before the storm.
And now the president was asked again what he meant by calm before the storm, and he responded, "You'll find out." The White House has not clarified the comments further. Mr. Trump faces an October 15th deadline on the Iran nuclear deal. He is expected to refuse to certify that Iran is in compliance. CBS News White House and senior foreign affairs correspondent Margaret Brennan joins us now. She's at the White House. I share the question that was raised in that room, Margaret. What storm is the president referring to?
The White House is refusing to clarify what the president meant, and if you play out that full tape, you had reporters repeatedly say to the president, "Sir, what storm? Which storm? Are you talking about Iran? Are you talking about ISIS? What are you referring to?" It's a very unusual statement, and it's one that raises a lot of concern, not necessarily the people in that room, but here in Washington and around the world. It's not something that an American president does typically to sort of tease the idea of an impending crisis. Typically, it's one you try to play down and express you're in control of, but clearly the president was trying to send a message of strength, one he constantly refers to as one of the things that differentiates him. He often trots out his military, as you saw with that dinner. He was standing alongside all the combatant commanders, all the big military leaders here in the United States gathered with him here. This is often something that's done behind closed doors, but President Trump wanted the press there and wanted to make that statement. It was deliberate.
Margaret, during the campaign, he certainly wasn't coy at all. The president was very clear on what he wanted to do with the Iran nuclear deal. He wanted to scrap it all together. Now he's saying he wants to decertify it. So what does he accomplish by choosing that instead?
So let's be clear here. The president is not expected to tear up the nuclear deal like he promised to do. He's also not expected to renegotiate it because every single signatory to that agreement refuses to do so. So what he is expected to do is to take a measure that basically deals with domestic politics, which is the U.S. Congress does not have a role in this nuclear deal. It wasn't a treaty. But what they can do is try to reimpose sanctions on Iran. So what the president is going to do is go to Congress and say, look, I'm not tying your hands. I'm not going to say Iran's abiding by the deal. That fast tracks Congress to be able to move with sanctions. But because of all the president's very top national security advisors, with the exception of Ambassador Nikki Haley and perhaps some skepticism from the CIA director, but Dunford, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the secretaries of defense, the secretary of state, along with his national security advisor, have really cautioned the president against doing this. And they're going to Congress and saying, please don't act. The president's going to give you the ability to put sanctions on Iran, but don't do it. Work with us here. Hold off. Help us use this threat of putting sanctions on Iran to maybe force a new round of talks, a supplemental deal. So the president can accomplish what he said, which is to tweak the deal, but not actually undo the Obama-era accord.
Interesting. So shifting back to the meeting at the White House on Thursday, President Trump also asked senior military leaders in the room to be quicker in providing him with options for military action. Let's take a listen to that and then talk about it.
Moving forward, I also expect you to provide me with a broad range of military options when needed at a much faster pace. I know that government bureaucracy is slow, but I am depending on you to overcome the obstacles of bureaucracy.
Now, Margaret, that sounds a lot like a criticism of the military, which is something that presidents don't typically do publicly. Any idea what the president is referring to with this issue regarding speed, and also how will foreign adversaries interpret these comments?
This is, again, something the White House has provided no context around to explain what the president is talking about. And as you say, it's a gentle but unusual criticism of the military there. What we do know is that the total review of U.S. policy towards Iran is coming to a conclusion now. It's one that has been in the works for some time. The president has been asking for ways, without blowing up that nuclear deal, how he could push back on some of the destabilizing influence Iran has had throughout the Middle East. Some of that involves some more aggressive military postures in the Middle East and pushing back there. We also know that he has been very frustrated. As you saw this weekend, it spilled out publicly that North Korea has not responded so far to any overtures from the U.S. towards starting a diplomatic process to get them to halt their nuclear program. That has failed so far. And you saw the president get frustrated with Rex Tillerson, his Secretary of State, this weekend, saying, look, don't waste your time. I'm done here. The White House says, wait a second, we're not done, because we think there are diplomatic ways to put more pressure on the situation here. But the president continues to come back to maybe there's more of a buildup, maybe there's more of a confrontational position we can take with North Korea that could change the calculus. So he's at least very publicly trying to show signs of strength on both Iran and North Korea, but it is not clear here what the actual message is coming from the administration on either of those two potential conflicts.
Some unanswered questions there for sure. Margaret Brennan at the White House for us. Thank you.